so get warning there.
So IT is participating in the meeting, and I can give them the green light here to start recording.
Okay.
So we're clear to start, Mayor.
Mayor, your mic is muted. Mayor Hernandez, your mic is on.
Okay. You think I'd never done this before. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Good to see everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to go right into City Council closed session. The time is 6 p.m. And I'd like to ask Madam Clerk if you could take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Councilmember Rollins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
And Mayor Hernandez.
Here. Thank you very much. And I understand we have no public comment. Is that correct?
For closed session, that's correct.
Okay. And I'd like to ask Mr. City Attorney if you could please read the closed session items.
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez. There is one item for closed session. It is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property in question is the vacant property on the west side of Market Street between Scott Street and Port Hueneme Road, bearing APN 206-091 and 285 and 305 suffixes. The agency negotiators are Brad Connors, City Manager, Charles Green, City Attorney, Kevin Spalding, Deputy City Attorney, Steve Kinney, Consultant at Caris Navigating. And the negotiating parties are the City of Port Hueneme and the Oxnard Harbor District, and what's under negotiation is price and terms of payment.
Okay. And who's reporting on this item?
Mayor and City Manager Connors will be providing a presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Whenever
you're ready.
You'll want to go ahead and recess, Mayor, so that we're not live. We'll recess to closed session, just so IT knows to kind of cut the feed there.
Okay, so we are
Correct. I'm trying to turn it off on my iPad so that I can re-sign up, I guess, for it. So it's not even letting me sign off, but I'll try. I'll see what happens. Oh, gosh. Darn it. Let me sign out.
How are you doing, Charles?
Mayor, we need just one more moment, please.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Growl, growl, growl. Hey, Bev, do you know how this thing, I can turn this thing off and restart it? Oh,
Okay, I believe we're ready to go as long as Councilmember Rollins feels comfortable moving forward.
yeah, Christy, I'm looking at my video preview and it's saying waiting. I can see my face. I can see, and I press join with video, but that's about as far as I can get. And it's not even allowing me to leave the meeting to rejoin. So I don't know what to do.
But you can hear everybody, you just can't see them, is that correct?
I can hear everybody. I can't see everybody, but I can raise my hand if.
Okay, I can see you, Councilman. So if you do have a comment or question, just raise your hand. And I'll go ahead and call on you. In the meantime, can you put your device on mute so we can go ahead and proceed?
I cannot. All the little icons on the top are not allowing me to do that.
Okay.
It's like waiting still. It's kind of like waiting to hook on to everybody, but it's not allowing me to do that. So for example, I can see things in the background, but that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
It's very difficult.
Oh, sorry if you're having trouble.
And
okay.
just for you guys to know before we officially start, I'm going to be the one running the host duties tonight. So this is my first time, and just be patient and bear with me as I run the presentations for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and resume to open session. The time is 6:58, and please join me in the flag salute as I call the meeting to order. Very good. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So welcome to the City Council meeting of November 2nd, 2020. We are conducting this meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N2820 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officers Stay Well at Home Order of March 20th, 2020. For information for our audience and our listeners out there, the City Council chamber has been closed to the public, and council members and staff are participating remotely, as you can see, to help play our part in minimizing the spread of COVID-19. The public has been notified in advance of the meeting and how to submit all public comments to our city clerk. The city clerk has compiled all submissions and those received prior to the 5 p.m. deadline. Those comments that we have today have been submitted to council for review prior to the meeting, and we will also read them as part of the official meeting record. So with that, I'd like to ask Madam Clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Burke?
Here.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Councilmember Rollins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
And Mayor Hernandez.
I'm here. Okay, thank you for that. And may we have a report from our city attorney on our closed session?
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez. There are no reportable actions taken in closed session tonight.
Okay, thank you. And our inspiration today comes from Councilman Berg.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hernandez. I think right now the 800-pound gorilla in the room is tomorrow's November 3rd, and we finally begin to think about the election a little more closely, and we'll find out what the not only the people of the city, but also the county and the state and the nation are going to find out. Elections do have consequences, and you know, all of our citizens have to remember that every vote really does count. So please, if you haven't voted yet, please get your ballots in. Don't forget that there is a ballot collection box at City Hall, and you can turn it in there. Also down at the County Center in Ventura, there's one there as well. So please be sure to vote and be sure to get your ballots turned in after you vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we are now on agenda approval for our city council meeting, and I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
No moved.
Second.
Okay, can we have a voice vote, please?
Councilmember Gama.
Yes.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now at general public comment. We have two items, as I mentioned earlier. The first item is from, I cannot read this title. I'm not a Navy person, but I'll go ahead and proceed. Greetings, Mayor Hernandez, Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp, council members, and city manager, Mr. Connors. For the record, my name is Kendall Lawson, and I am the Community Planning Liaison Officer for Naval Base, Ventura County, NBVC. I have an announcement that I would like to share with the City Council, city staff, and community members of the City of Port Hueneme and the Navy, that the Navy is proposing to home base a new carrier-based unmanned air system, the MQ-25A Stingray, at Navy Base Ventura County in Point Mugu, California. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment to evaluate the potential environmental effects of the MQ-25A Stingray home basing action, which is available for public review and attached. The environmental assessment analyzes the impacts of home basing 20 Stingray air vehicles and stationing approximately 730 personnel plus their family members at Point Mugu. In addition, the environmental assessment addresses the impacts of Stingray flight operations, constructing a new hangar, training facilities, and supporting infrastructure, performing air vehicle maintenance, and providing training for air vehicle operators and maintainers. Interested parties may view a copy of the draft environmental assessment at the Rady Pruder Library, 510 Park Avenue, Port Hueneme, California, 93041, or the E.P. Foster Library at 651 East Main Street, Ventura, California, 93001, and at the following website, which is provided to all of you on the printed copy. To ensure consideration in the final environmental assessment, all comments must be postmarked or received online no later than November 30th, 2020. Written comments may also be submitted online, and the link is been provided, or you can mail to MQ-25A Stingray, CBUAS, EA Project Manager, Naval Facilities Engineering Command, Atlantic, attention code EV21JB, 6506 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 93508. And thank you again for your time and attention to listen to this Navy announcement. And we appreciate your continued support and partnership between the city of Port Hueneme and our Navy base, Ventura County community. If you have any questions regarding the above, please feel free to reach out to our Public Affairs Office at 805-989-9234. Thank you, Kendall P. Lawson, or Kenny, Community Planning Liaison Officer. Well, that sounds pretty exciting. Okay, our next public comment. Oops. Let's get out of here. We're really having technical difficulties tonight, aren't we? Okay. Okay, the next one comes from Dolly Knight from our library. Dear Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council, with the county's move into the red tier, the Ray D. Pruder Library is now allowing 2 patrons at a time to use the computers inside the library for 1-hour sessions from 1 to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Reservations are encouraged and can be made up to 1 week in advance by calling the library at 486-5460. We are offering printing up to 10 pages using our mobile printing software. Call the library or visit the library website at vencolibrary.org. We cannot offer staff assistance with computer usage at this time. In the past few weeks, we've had patrons use the computers to apply for EDD benefits, job search, register to vote, and more. We are excited to be offering this service to our patrons. The library continues to distribute crafting kits for adults and children, and we have expanded our holds pickup hours. Staff are available to check out holds Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Holds may be placed online or over the phone. We can also issue library cards online or over the phone. Thank you to the city for following the Friends of the Port Hueneme Library to sell books, for allowing the Friends of the Port Hueneme Library to sell books at the beach showing of Cocoa. The Friends continue to fundraise and hope to offer more book sales soon. While we do not know when we will move to the next tier, we are already making preparations for it by reconfiguring our space to allow for social distancing and more browsing. We hope to welcome patrons back for limited browsing when it is safe to do so. In the meantime, stay healthy and well. Thanks, Dolly Knight. Well, thank you, Dolly. Thank you. I'm glad to see that we're slowly reopening and you're doing some good work out there. Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments from City Council? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our presentations. Item number 1 is the Channel Deepening Project, verbal update by the Port of Hueneme. And welcome KJ May, who will be our presenter.
Yes, ma'am. Just want to do a quick comms check. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Hey, good evening, Mayor Hernandez, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, and city staff. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the Port of Hueneme's channel deepening project update today. I'm KJ May. I'm the engineer manager at the Port of Hueneme. Also on the call, I have my colleagues from the Port and also Jack Malone from Anchor QEA, who is the Port's consultant and has been instrumental in helping the Port through the rigorous environmental permitting process for all Port's recent dredging projects. He is also a lot smarter than I am, so I figure I have him on tonight to keep me out of trouble. And first, I'd like to briefly go over a few slides to update you on how the Port is doing. Then followed by the actual update of the channel deepening project. Next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you very much. As you can see on this slide, the Port's revenue and cargo numbers for FY 2020 are relatively steady. We originally had projected a higher number of revenue decrease for FY 2020 due to the pandemic. But the dip was only about 1.8% overall in cargo tons for FY 2020. And this is an audited number that we'd like to share with you now. The audited number will be finalized this month by the end of November, and we anticipate to be pretty close to that number. And then again, relatively speaking, these are positive numbers, not only for the Port, but also for the city of Port Hueneme as well, for the revenue contribution to the city, which is roughly about 10.6%, or $1.9 million in FY 2020. We're very grateful to have a strong partnership with not only our customers, but also with the city of Port Hueneme to get through these challenging times. Next slide, please. This slide shows the current first quarter results of FY 21. The dark green bars are actual first quarter results, and the light green bars are the original estimates. Both are compared with the orange bars from last year, FY 20's first quarter performance results. As you can visualize, the original projected auto cargo numbers were pretty awful during the start of the pandemic. It was somewhere around 28% drop in revenue for the autos, for as the worst case scenario. But as we move forward, the dip was actually about 8% for the auto segment, and which isn't too bad. Our fruit business remains steady with very minimal impact as anticipated. Really, the takeaway is that the FY 20 first quarter numbers overall are looking strong, and we look forward to continue the rebound. Next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight again, I'm sure many of you have seen this, the Port continues to contribute to direct jobs here in Ventura County. The total direct jobs from the city of Port Hueneme specifically is at 16%, or 413 jobs total. And as you know, these are good paying jobs, and we hope to continue to provide more jobs to the nearby communities. Next slide, please. This is just a slide I just want to share with everyone that since I've been on board with the Port, we have been planning and executing green projects nonstop. Our container ships are now plugging into shoreside power system, directly reducing emissions. We now have available electric vehicle charging station in our parking lots for public use. And we've installed air quality monitors in the city of Port Hueneme that provides good air data for the communities. And we also have upcoming projects next year that will build out infrastructures to electrify our mobile harbor cranes, and also install charging stations for our first 2 electric yard tractors that will start moving containers on port next year, also helping to reduce the emissions. We have invested a lot of money on the green initiatives, just like Commissioner Ramirez always says, it takes green to go green. So the more revenue we have, the more green projects we can implement. Next, please. So now we're getting into the dredging projects. So this slide, I just want to showcase that the Port has a periodic maintenance and special dredging projects that occur every so often, and we continue to strive to put as much sand as possible to Hueneme Beach. I like to clarify these numbers for the amount of sand contributed to Hueneme Beach since 1999. It's not part of the biannual dredging from Channel Islands. These are in addition to the sand from the Channel Islands dredging. Also, please note that when the projects line up, such as this fiscal year, when we anticipate about 1.7 million cubic yards of sand from the Channel Islands dredging, along with the Port's 370,000 cubic yards of sand. I know on the slide it says 360, but it has been updated since. Of sand. The combination of both dredging projects will make the Hueneme beachhead last longer, much like back in 2009, when the Port contributed 630,000 cubic yards of sand along with Channel Islands biannual dredging around the same time. And that was from the CAD project, or the Confined Aquatic Disposal Project from 2009. Next slide, please. The slide shows the most recent dredging project in detail. We just wrap up our berth deepening project funded by the Department of Transportation on the left-hand side, which we now have deepened berth 1 and 2, new fender and mooring systems, and new underwater tow wall to support the new design depth of -40 feet from the original 35 feet design depth. So now with the additional upcoming companion deepening project, the channel deepening, which will be managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Corps of Engineers awarded the contract just this past August, and the contractor is scheduled to mobilize this late November, and they plan to start dredging in December in the harbor this year. So the next 2 slides will show you the sand placement locations, and also the from the berth and channel deepening dredging. So next slide, please. So this slide's just give you a quick orientation. The Port has always been mindful of how to maximize Hueneme beach nourishment in order to provide to protect the beach from erosion. Our efforts have allowed us to really maximize the beach nourishment from both the berth and channel deepening projects this fiscal year. Our most recently completed berth deepening project earlier this year, we were able to contribute 20,000 cubic yards of sand in the nearshore placement, as you can see on the slide, where it says sand on the further end, away from the beach. That's the nearshore location. And for the upcoming channel deepening project, sand from this particular project will be placed in a combination of both nearshore and on beach for both locations, as illustrated on this slide. Next slide, please. So this slide shows more in detail where the sand is going with the soon to start channel deepening project. Approximately about 1/3 of the sand, or 120,000 cubic yards, will be placed directly onto the beach, and about 2/3, or 240,000 cubic yards of sand, will be placed near shore. Please disregard the onshore option. That was from another project. And I also like to emphasize that beach nourishment is not simple. Not only environmental agencies need to agree where the sand can go, they're also a budget constraint as well. So these deepening projects that basically 20 years in the making, and now they're finalized. They're finally happening, which we're very excited about.
KJ, can
So
I
next slide,
interrupt you
please.
really quick for a second? Could you tell me where
Yes.
where the 130,000 cubic yards is going, and where the 240 cubic yards are going again?
Yes, Mayor. So 120,000 cubic yards is going to the beach placement area.
Okay.
So if you can see the green polygon,
Yes.
where the beach is, yeah. So that's where it's going,
And that's
and that's 120,000 cubic yards. Yes, ma'am. And then about 2/3, or 240,000 cubic yards of sand will be placed near shore, which is about 300 feet from the beachhead in the near shore disposal polygon area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So next slide, please. So with this last slide, the Port would like to thank the City of Port Hueneme's participation in feeding the frontline events. So instead of our annual Banana Festival, the Port put resources and funds this year into the providing the food and also essential distribution to those most affected in our communities. So again, we thank you all for your support. And this concludes my presentation for the update, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, KJ. We really appreciate you being here tonight and sharing this information. I see we have Ms. Lacayo also here. Okay, so for raise of hands, I will call on Mayor Pro Tem, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, you can go first, and then Councilman Rollins.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. May, for the update. I had a question about you called it the nearshore disposal. Tell us a little bit about the project there. I'm going to stop my video. Yeah. Did you hear me? Thanks.
Yes, I think I heard the question. So the question is, you would like to know about the nearshore disposal option regarding the project. So yeah, absolutely. As mentioned earlier during the slides, sorry, I went a little bit quick trying to cover all the slides within a lot of time frame. But basically, there's the environmental constraint. So again, the environmental agencies, they tell us where we can place the sand. And also there's the budgetary constraint as well. So we cannot award the project unless it's within a certain limit. And so again, this channel deepening project is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have a certain budget that they have for this particular project. So long story short, they did try to go out to bid on this project, basically to have an on-beach option for the placement. But then the bids came back really high and they couldn't award it the first time. So it was above the 25% budget limit that they have, so they couldn't award it. So they had to open up the bid to nearshore option as well, and that would invite more competition into the bid, and so which resulted in the contract being awarded within the budget amount that the Army Corps of Engineers has, and we're getting a third of the beach nourishment. And then 2/3 of it is going to nearshore placement, which is also a beneficial use of sand. It may not be visually apparent that the sand is going directly onto the beach, but it does have a downstream effect, helping out the beach erosion issue all the way throughout the coast. So it does help.
So it sounds then like the near shore would be about 2/3 of the total of what's going to be dredged, and 1/3 will then be placed on shore. Was that more of like meeting the demands of a $10 million project, or was it meeting the demands of how you were trying to deepen the port?
I guess I'm not sure how to interpret the question. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, the Army Corps of Engineers went out to bid the first time last year, and the bids came in too high. So they had to make some adjustment to the placement zones of the dredging project in order to open up more competition. And so we had an option of not having the project awarded, or open up the competition to have the project move forward. So those are the two options. Basically, the Army Corps of Engineers gave the Port of Hueneme. So obviously, having some sand is better than no sand. So that's sort of the options that were given. But then again, nearshore placement, it does benefit the beach as well. It's just not as apparent. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, in the 12 years I've been on the council, I have yet to have heard a nearshore sand placement. So I'd be interested to see what kind of benefit that would be. For sure, it needs to be put somewhere. And we'll see if it actually then does benefit, because I know sand moves southward. And so hopefully it will help then nourish our beaches. But I've not ever seen that in any of the other plants.
Councilman
You're welcome.
Rollins, Councilman Rollins and Councilman Gama?
Yeah, I think Councilman Schnapp answered the first part of my question, but for how often is the port dredged? How often does this process happen? Is it a one-time thing to deepen the port, or is this a ongoing thing that's done every so many years?
Yes, sir. So earlier I had a slide that show since 1999, we had various dredging projects. So there are two types of projects, dredging projects for the port. One is ongoing, which is the periodic maintenance dredging projects. And the second one is the special dredging project, which is the deepening projects. And those are typically just a one-time thing. So when we have the periodic maintenance dredging projects, those happen, roughly, it really depends on the survey, right? So how much shoaling you have, how much buildup of the sediment you have on the port in the harbor. So that all depends on the annual survey. So if the Army Corps of Engineers does their survey and determine that there is some buildup in the harbor and it's outside the design depth, they will basically mobilize the periodic maintenance dredging project. For the deepening project, that only happens, again, it took us 20 years in the making to have that project commence. So that only happens rarely. It depends on how deep the harbor needs to go. I would say probably a couple more decades before we probably decide that we need deeper harbor, or maybe other berths needs to be deepened too as well. Perhaps the Navy side wants to deepen their berths as well. So it all depends.
From the port's perspective, they're going to be deepening the port, from 35 to 40 feet?
45.
Yes, sir. 35 to 40 feet.
Okay. What does the port estimate the benefit to their business from deepening it? In other words, why are they deepening it? What be it I'm assuming some kind of a business benefit, they'll be able to increase benefit. Have they had any kind of projections why they're taking on this project?
Yes, Councilman. So definitely there will be business benefit. I think Donna Lacayo on the line could probably speak more to it. But from the operational standpoint, just to give you an example, we have vessels that would have to basically anchor out, out on shore, waiting for the right tide to get it onto the port, the tankers specifically. And so now the berths, once we completed our deepening project, those anchorings occurrence will be less and less because they no longer have to wait for the right tide to come into the port because the port is now deeper. And so it does help operationally speaking for certain vessels. And also if our business partners now recognizes the harbor is deeper, they will definitely load their vessels heavier, and that could reduce the cost of their operations too, right? So they may no longer have to call the port 4 times a month. It could be 3 times a month now, right? So there's some cost savings too to our customers on a couple aspects of it. So I don't know if Donna, you want to speak to this topic, or if I covered it all.
No, KJ, I think you covered the highlights of why we're dredging very well. Good evening, Mayor Hernandez, council members. Just to add a couple of things to it, as KJ mentioned, we already have customers that are having to wait for high tide. One of them is Yara with the tanker ships, and we know they're one of our major premier customers. Last week, or was it 10 days ago, we had one of the largest Millennium ships come to the port. And even though they're pretty long, they also require deeper depth than we've ever seen before. On the container side of the business, we have had interest from companies to load heavier. And as KJ mentioned, that will increase the efficiencies and utilization of the terminal and make it a lot more efficient, meaning we would be able to potentially do more cargo with heavier ships and more being able to go deeper. So it's all economically, a lot more positive, and it will grow business, and it will keep us competitive with other ports that are already at depth of 40 feet and beyond. So it's really important for this port to stay economically viable, and this deepening project represents our investment and commitment to do so.
Okay. Thank you. Just one other thing that you had mentioned somewhere along your report. You mentioned that there's an air quality monitoring station that the port where is that located right now?
It's at Haycox Elementary School.
Okay. Thank you.
That's very nearby you. And if I may quote from the Tiger grant, which helped our deepening project, it was estimated through economist analysis that this project will create over 500 new jobs because of the cargo potential that it comes with.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gama?
Yes, I just want to be clear for the public possibly listening in, and that the deepening projects are not what's happening right now. Right now is the biannual bypass project. So, and for me, it's really fun to watch because in the last 9 days, we have seen the beach reemerge at the lighthouse. In fact, the waves started breaking today a little bit. But so near shore will look different than it looked on the slide because the beach is already out another 75 to 100 yards. So does that impact when you do your near shore drop? Like, because the near shore drop's going to come after the bypass. So in all effect, it almost will be onshore because the beach will be out another 200 yards. Does that make sense, KJ?
Yes, Councilman Gama, that is correct. I'm glad you brought that up. So yes, it will be more positive for the nearshore placement in a sense that the beachhead will be a lot further out. And so in my opinion, it only helps. It will probably help build up the Hueneme Beach even more with the nearshore option. If the beachhead wasn't out there like the current situation, then yeah, it would probably go downstream more south if we didn't have the beachhead. If that makes sense.
It's complicated, but you made it easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for you on the timeline. I think I heard a November start date. Is that correct? Is that November 2020?
Yes, ma'am. We have the contractor currently planning on mobilizing at the end of November, and they're finishing up a job in the San Francisco Bay Area location. And once they're done, they'll mobilize down south and start the dredging process in probably early December. Okay, so they'll mobilize in November, start dredging in December.
So your project is going on at the same time the biannual project is occurring. So how are you guys collaborating or coordinating your operations?
That is a very good question. Luckily, the managed entity is the Army Corps of Engineers for both projects. Mm-hmm. So their project manager has this basically within their site. They're laser focused on both projects. So they're communicating with both contractors and keeping us in the loop at all times.
So these are two different contractors working side by side.
Yes, ma'am. The Channel Islands contractor is Manson Construction, and our Hueneme Channel Deepening project is awarded to Kern Maritime. So two different contractors.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, and it's two different projects,
Councilman Gama.
correct? Because the deepening is going to be done with a clamshell and not a dredge.
Yes, Councilman Gama. So the deepening will be actually both clamshell and hydraulic dredge. So that's the latest proposal from the contractor. And so for the nearshore placement, they will utilize the clamshell dredge method. And for the on-beach placement, they'll utilize a hydraulic dredge option, which is very similar, just like the Manson setup, but on a much smaller scale. Sorry, that was my dog. He is hungry, so he's waiting for me to feed him.
Just like mine.
Okay. Any more questions for KJ May?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. May, for this great piece of information and the good work that you do to partner with the city and say, hey, we need to do this project, and is there a benefit to us? So appreciate the thought in all of this. What kind of announcements are being made to the community just to let them know about what's going on out there and the length of time and the benefits to all of us? Tell us a little bit about that story.
All right, Donna, would you like to take this one?
You need to unmute, Donna. We all do it. Don't worry.
Sorry, great question, Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry. Yeah, so we would be doing social media posts. We would do next door posting. We could, we have a weekly newsletter. I believe all of you are on copy and you receive it. We could have the highlights and the project timeline in there. We could also create a flyer that we could start handing out at the Feeding the Front Lines, maybe like a postcard size of just like, did you know that the port is dredging and we're replenishing, and helping with beach erosion near you. So we could do that as well. But we're going to do outreach. I think it's important that the community knows that this is happening, and it's happening clearly and probably a few days from now, as KJ said, starting November. So we will do so. If there are any other ideas that you have or places where we should do these posts, please let us know, and we'll be happy to accommodate.
Great, thank you. I think social media is going to be a good medium to use, that's for sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no further questions for Ms. Lacayo or Mr. May, we'll go ahead and thank you for your presentation and for answering all our questions and for the great relationship we have with the port. And thank you for all your hard work. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item 2, and that is the dog park research update by our Deputy City Manager, Charles Peretz. Mr. Peretz, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. For the record, Charles Peretz, Deputy City Manager. I'll be giving the presentation about the dog park research and analysis that's been done. The intent of the presentation is to provide information about research that's been conducted about dog parks and outline the steps that would be necessary in order to bring a dog park to the city of Port Hueneme. While research has been done and a process has been outlined, no specific information such as a project schedule, project location, or project budget is yet existing. Should a dog park project be approved by the city in the future, the use of a design professional and input from the public will be key factors in developing recommendations that will be submitted to the City Council for approval. Next slide, please. if you could bring up the bullet points, please. The discussion about potential dog park in the city is consistent with the city strategic plan, specifically the strategic plan pillar of providing a safe and secure and beautiful community. One of the objectives for that pillar is the provision of accessible, inviting, and safe physical spaces, which includes upgrading our park system. Next slide, please. As all of you know, there is community interest in having a dog park. That has been demonstrated through public input received through the park master plan process, through the development of the unauthorized dog park at Bubbling Springs, through public comments shared at council meetings, and through direct contacts with city council members. In response to the community's interest, the city reviewed the prospects of installing a temporary dog park, researched design considerations, and assessed steps that would be necessary to allow for such use in the city. Based on concerns with potential risk exposures, existing restrictions in the municipal code, and pending the completion of the park's master plan, staff decided not to pursue a temporary installation at this time. It should also be noted that limited funding would have significantly impacted the amenities that could have been offered at the dog park and would have adversely impacted user experience. Research efforts included reviewing professional periodicals written by dog park designers, analyzing municipal dog park policies, conducting site visits to local dog parks, and surveying local dog park managers. Time was also spent reviewing administrative steps related to land use regulation and the need to amend the municipal code to allow for off-leash activities in the city. Next slide, please. So there are a number of factors that would need to be considered, and this is not intended to provide any specific detail or conclusions about these, but just to brief the council on many of the items that would be considered should we move forward with the process in the future. The first, of course, is safety, both human and canine safety, and the management of risks at any such facility. The adoption of rules and regulations and the use of a professional, a landscape designer that specializes in dog park design would enhance safety and reduce the city's risk exposure. On that note, at the beginning of the conversations here, the city did reach out to the CJPIA and did receive useful and important information from them. Location and siting considerations are another important factor that would need to be considered. We need to consider impacts on adjacent uses, both within any park area and also adjacent private properties that could be impacted by such things as noise or parking, lights if we go in that direction, things of that nature. Additionally, when we cite a location such as this, we'd need to ensure that there's easy public access, and we'd also want to take into consideration the geographic location within the city. Facility size, that's going to be a large consideration, and of course, it's partly determined by available locations, available spaces, but it's also determined by the type of use that we wish to have, whether it's simply a passive use, whether we want a dog run, whether we want agility equipment, or we want to have something that can be used for special events. These are things that would need to be considered in determining the right amount of space for such a facility. Locally, I found examples of spaces as small as a 1/4 acre and others that are approximately 2 acres in size. One other related consideration, of course, is parking. These tend to be very popular amenities throughout the park system. So we'd have to assess existing capacity and the opportunity for additional development of parking spaces as needed. Next slide, please. So as indicated, there are a number of considerations, and this is just to mention a few. In addition to the ones on the prior slide, surface materials, another important consideration. Again, locally, I found examples of natural turf, synthetic turf, decomposed granite, just dirt, and mulch. And then, of course, there are examples where there are combinations thereof of different surface materials. And when we do that, we would need to consider both the user experience, both for humans in the off-leash area, as well as maintenance and durability concerns. So they each come with their own cost impacts, both short-term and long-term. Amenities are another important consideration. The benches, dog waste bags, trash cans, those are kind of par for the course. But there are many other things. Water fountains that service both humans and dogs, shade trees and or shade structures. As I mentioned before, some have agility equipment and are kind of specialized in that manner. So what amenities we provide would be dictated both by the size and the space available, as well as community expectations and community needs. Maintenance access, I mentioned maintenance a while ago being impacted by the surface material. We'd also need to design to account for both maintenance access, and we'd need to allow for and probably early on set expectations for maintenance and impacts on park use. Again, these tend to be heavily used areas that require significant amounts of maintenance, and it would be important to establish the amount of maintenance that is needed and communicate to the public closures, whether it be hours of day or days of week, so there are expectations going in for city needs in order to maintain the facility properly. And then lastly, we need to consider hours of operation. Many of our parks are open until 10 o'clock, and if we wanted this facility to be open for the same period of time, we would have to consider whether or not lights were something that we would want to incorporate into the design. And if so, lights carry with it potential impacts on adjacent uses, so that would have to be studied and considered very carefully. Next slide, please. So as noted earlier in the presentation, public input in the park's master plan made various suggestions for the development of dog park. The final plan, which is intended to be presented to the council early next calendar year, will afford the council the opportunity to consider and prioritize various park projects. The order of priority that is established at that time would guide both staff and budgetary resources that would be devoted to any dog park, and that would help us drive schedule and prioritize this project. Public input would be an essential part of the design development and location selection, and it's envisioned that the Citizen Advisory Commission would be a good location for the vetting and for the public input process to receive input both from the public and from the commissioners so that recommendations could be developed and submitted to council for council's consideration. As I alluded to before, in addition to approving the project itself, the city council would need to approve an amendment to the municipal code's leash law, authorize the establishment of rules and regulations pertaining to the facility's use, and approve a new or a modification to an existing land use permit or approved plans. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. Again, at this time, this was an effort to update the council on the efforts that had been undertaken and give a general anticipation of future steps. At this time, we don't really have specific information, but I would be happy to answer questions that the council has.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pretz, for that very comprehensive report. That looks like it took a lot of work. Who would have thought that a dog park would require so much thought and planning? So it really does, doesn't it?
It does.
So, okay, let's open it up for questions. I see Mayor Pro Tem, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to go next? And then Councilman Rollins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Peretz, for it seems like a thorough first start if we were to consider a dog park. Of the cities and from where you drew some of this information in your research, how many of those cities actually have like a parks district where they're collecting a special fund revenue source that could give them some of this maintenance and new opportunities to put together like a new dog park for their community?
So one of the entities that I contacted was the Pleasant Valley Recreational Parks District. So that in of itself is a special district. I did ask those questions of others that I contacted about whether or not there were special revenue sources that were used to fund either the construction or the ongoing maintenance of the facilities. There aren't. Ventura has, if I recall correctly, 3 dog parks. Oxnard has 3. And I believe Pleasant Valley has 2, if I'm recalling correctly. And other than Pleasant Valley, I was told that the others, it is general fund dollars that are used, and there is not a special revenue source.
Okay. And you probably heard different ranges, like what it might take. What are some of those dollar amounts that you've heard in the inception part of like starting a dog park? What did people have recommendations for us, or did they say it's between like $500,000 and $2 million, or did they give us a range at all?
Mayor Pro Tem, I did seek that information. I thought that would be a good benchmark, just a ballpark to figure to work with at this time. Unfortunately, I wasn't really given any reliable information from the individuals that I spoke with, but I do intend over time, even before we get to the point where we create a schedule and engage a professional to get a more reasonable general estimate. I don't really have a good one to share at this time, but it is my intent to get a number that we can work with so that when we do some serious consideration of moving forward, we have a general concept of what it might cost.
And then just one comment here is that I know that Santa Barbara has a park named Elings Park, and they allow dog walkers to come through, the dogs with their, parents, but they do charge an annual fee in order to kind of use that park. It's not necessarily a city park. It's more of a private organization, but at least there could be a source of funds, so that's maybe out of the range of how we're developing this from the city perspective, but it could possibly be a way of raising money to keep maintenance going and all of that. So it's Elings Park, Santa Barbara. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilman Rollins?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Perez, for a really good report. It shows that you've done a lot of extensive research on various factors that are involved with the park. One little item that I had seen in other cities, had you found any information regarding the people who use the facilities? Are there licensing requirements for the dogs themselves?
Yeah, that tends to be one standard item as part of the rules, that all dogs would both have to be vaccinated and they would have to be licensed in order to use the park. So that does tend to be kind of a best management from the rules and regulations perspective.
A second thing, how have the other cities monitored that people who use the dog park follow whatever rules that are developed?
So each does have enforcement resources, I guess I'll call them, but I think it's fair to say just about all cases of the individuals that I spoke with, there's definitely some self-policing that is common at these facilities, and I experienced that in my last agency as well. There could be animal control or humane society as an enforcement official, but mostly the individuals that frequent these sites will remind others about rules if there are violations, because frankly, everybody wants to protect their own dogs, so they want to ensure that everybody's following the rules.
Okay. And you were mentioning that the next report or progress report will be in the beginning of next year. So what will be added onto, be it that report or that next step from the extensive stuff that you've done already? What would be the next step that you would see happening?
Well, I think the next step is to make a decision about whether or not we're going to move forward with a dog park project. And I think the right time to make that decision and consider allocating funds towards a project is when we consider the park projects and the implementation plan for the park's master plan holistically. So at the time that we consider all potential park projects is I believe, the time that we'll make decisions about devoting resources to this project.
So you're mentioning that the size of dog parks can range from about 1/4 of an acre to 2 acres. How will, when we're comparing them to the other projects and prioritizing them, when will we get more of a finite view as to what a dog park would cost and what size that dog park might be? Or how would we determine that? Or how do you go figure if we were going to determine that?
I think that I will be doing some additional research before we get to that point. I think any cost estimate that's offered at the time that those projects are considered and prioritized will have to be with an asterisk and underlined as subject to change. I think we'll have to do our best guess. If we estimate a 1 acre size dog park that doesn't require extensive earth moving, et cetera, and has certain types of uses, and through the public process, we learn that the community wants something significantly different. Well, the budget and perhaps the schedule would need to be adjusted at that time. But I think we can make an intelligent assumptions at the beginning of the process and provide some conceptual ideas on what it might take.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Perez? Yes, Councilman Gama, go ahead.
Thank you, Charles, really appreciate the work. And I've been to many dog parks, grandiose and low key. And one thing I have learned from Jackson, my dog, is that regardless, whenever I walk him, it could be rainy, muddy, windy, whatever. Whenever I take him on a walk, it's the best day of his life. And so dogs, I think less is more when it comes to a dog park. And some of the most utilized dog parks are the ones with the least amount of amenities, where basically the dog just runs around and has a great time. But I have seen dog parks like the one in Oxnard where they went grandiose and it turned out to be a bad situation. For example, they put a washing station in, and then they determined that homeless people were, taking showers there. And so they had to discontinue that. So, that was probably $100,000 wasted. So I think we can learn a lot from the cities, but I think less is more in a dog park. And I think a dog like I said, whenever I watch Jackson, it's the best day of his life. It doesn't matter what. And if he ever gets off leash, it's the greatest day ever. So I look forward to the future on this. And again, I just think we don't have to shoot for the moon. I think we just need to cover all the bases, make it safe, and all those other important points that you brought up. So thank you so much. And Jackson, thanks you a lot as well.
If there are no more questions, I just had one in the back of my head. Is there going to be an environmental assessment or EIR of any sort required for this kind of project for a dog park?
I think, Mayor, that remains to be seen. I think it's going to depend on location. It's going to depend on the scale of the project and potential impacts from whatever project we do decide. But I will say, and Tony can certainly speak to this in more specificity, I will say this: I think that there will be some type of review. As I mentioned it towards the end of the presentation, we'll have to assess whether or not there are land use permits or other approvals that need to be either granted or modified, and that there would be some type of environmental review that accompanies any of those.
Okay. Well, thank you again for your excellent report and all your hard work. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing more.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to our next presentation, which is item 3. And we have Chief Salinas already geared up here to present on COVID-19 and provide us a community update. So whenever you're ready, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to give us our COVID update. We started doing these, we've gone to monthly now. I have nothing but good news to share with everyone today. Our last COVID report was at the first meeting in October, so just about 4 weeks ago. And so I'm gonna go through this really quickly. This is what I presented our last meeting, which was on October 5th. And the reason I show you this is just to show you how much we have improved from September to October, and then again from October to November. Here you see that we had 339 total cases in September, and then when we moved to October, that increased by 62 cases for that month. In fact, we went up 1/10 of a percentage point. And then you can see on the bottom here, we had 31 active cases at the October 5th meeting. Now, as we move from October to November, there's been a giant improvement. As you see, in October, I reported 401 total cases and 434 total cases to date right now. Actually, let me, right now. And so we've only had an additional 33 cases in that same period of time, which is nearly half as many from September to October. And as you can see, we only have 7 active cases right now in the city, which is down from the previous month of 31. And our percentage point actually went down. We went from 3.1% now in total county cases down to 3%. So we're doing very good. In fact, we had this last week, we had a 4-day stretch of 0 cases in our city, and no one has done that in the last 3 months. So that's good news to report. So right now we're actually averaging about a half a positive case each day. And we haven't seen those types of numbers since late April, early May. So we are definitely on the right track at this point. So this is the metric that I presented to everybody in October. I show you this is because this is a metric that was used to move us from the purple tier down to the red tier. And so now our next step is to get us to the orange tier. And so this is what it's going to take for us to get to the orange tier. I'm sorry. Yeah, to the orange tier. Right now, the county is at 4.9 cases per 100,000, and we're going to need to be as low as 3.9 cases per 100,000. So we have a ways to go. So of the 7 metrics that the state uses, you can see we are green in 4 of them, the bottom 4, and we have some improving to do on the top 3. And this is how it compares to last month that got us down to the current tier. So we were at 7.0, and now we have to really jump all the way down to 3.9. So there is a lot of work to be done here. I don't foresee us moving tiers at least during the month of November. We will have some challenges during the month of November, which has to do with the holidays, Thanksgiving and families coming together, as well as the potential outcome of the election tomorrow and what may happen following the election in terms of civil unrest or protests as a result of the election. So we are planning for that, which may cause an increase in COVID cases. So one other thing to report to everyone is that we did have a positive case in Mar Vista. Housing was diligently addressing that issue. We haven't seen any additional cases in Mar Vista, and that positive case was approximately 10 days ago now. So we are almost out of the woods, as to say, when it comes to any potential issues there or it gaining any type of momentum or causing infection to any of the other population at Mar Vista. So with that, that's all I have to report in regards to COVID, because it's nothing but positive information, and that we still need to stay diligent, especially as involves wearing masks and washing our hands. And hopefully tomorrow or Thanksgiving doesn't have a significant impact or turn us in the other direction, since we're doing so well. With that, if anyone has any questions.
Hey, Councilman Rollins?
Yeah, first, I want to congratulate the entire Port Hueneme community about working seriously to take preventative measures to get us down to these levels. My question is, in order for us to get down to the next level, it's a countywide decision, not necessarily a local decision. Am I correct?
That is correct. The governor will acknowledge that we're in a certain tier level based on our statistics, and at that time we'll be granted permission to move down to the orange level right now. So yes, it is a state decision and then a county decision after that.
And then my follow-up question is, while our city is doing very well because we're somewhat dependent on the rest of the county to also do well. And forgive me if you brought that up in one of the slides. I can't see the slides tonight. But are the other cities and the unincorporated areas in the county, are they moving in the same direction as us, or is it sporadic? Some are moving up higher and some are moving better? Or where do we stand on that?
That's a good question. I don't see that any of the other cities are regressing or traveling in the opposite direction. It appears that the county is, as a whole, doing well. It's just a very slow decreasing trend towards hitting our next tier. Right now, the city of Port Hueneme is ahead of the trend, the decreasing trend, since we are doing so well. So we are most definitely doing our part here.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Chief Salinas, for this report. I have a couple of questions. One's regarding the new data set that the state had mandated, and it was really taking a look at the communities that maybe they are either have a denser population, have maybe higher risk folks. How does that play into these figures that you're showing us today?
So because the County of Ventura from the outset divided the county into zip codes, they were able to immediately identify those areas that were troublesome or not getting the attention they needed. And so we were far ahead of the curve in regards to our response to that. So we are still tracking very well in those areas. And so we didn't have those same concerns as other cities did in the state.
Okay. And then from the standpoint of businesses, two other questions then. So the businesses, as we've now gone to from outdoor dining to maybe what, 25% of indoor, and gyms having that opportunity to reopen, but with some limitations. How do we as a city and the team here work alongside the businesses so that they know how to abide by these new regulations and advising their, the folks that, come to their places to eat?
Yes, so we still continue, and I'll let Tony add on if I missed anything, but we are still continuing to be very flexible as it relates to outdoor dining, permitting in terms of getting that extra space out in parking lots if they wanted to use that, or sidewalk space, as well as signage, curbside service, and parking spaces for that type of service, especially as it relates to our cannabis dispensaries. So we are still very flexible in regards to making sure our businesses have every opportunity to try and make it through this difficult time. So I've been in several of these businesses, such as Roxbury's, and I've seen how they have adapted, and they all seem to have adapted very well at this point. And I haven't seen any issues, or I haven't seen any of our businesses really complaining that we aren't doing our part to help them through this difficult time.
Because one of the things that I've also seen is that Ralph's actually was just incorporated their curbside pickup, I think it is. That they were one of the last Ralphs in the area to do that. Some of the other larger communities had it. But so that seems like, they're picking up on some of this other business, that people are choosing to shop in a different way. And certainly it affects then the folks here in our community. So, all right, I appreciate you working alongside the businesses to make sure we're doing everything we can so that they could stay open, abiding by these rules. And then last but not least, a couple of weeks ago, the county had announced that they were going to be distributing the next round of grants that were then put together by the county, millions of dollars going out. And effectively, it was for businesses, giving them a grant of $5,000. And it was going to be, I believe, by lottery system. And so they were getting ready to push the next set of, or the next round of money out. Have we heard anything further about that?
I have not. I have not followed up on that. I was kind of hoping that that Steve Kinney would be on this call, but maybe the city manager can bail me out on that since he just showed up on the screen.
Okay. All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, we engaged with VCCF and the agent, Bruce Stensley, who we asked previously about a few weeks ago for details with regard to our Port Hueneme businesses. I wish I could say that I got an immediate email with a spreadsheet that gave us those details, but all he could tell us was that the letters went out, people were notified, and that the checks would be mailed. He couldn't, unfortunately, tell us who or when, but he would say that he would, and his team would reconcile that, and we would get accurate data on how our businesses fared in that grant process.
Because that is something that we did to help out our businesses. I know that Steve Kenny and Tony and others carved out some time to meet with businesses that wanted to apply for these grants, but maybe lacked some either skills trying to navigate the site, etc. And so we really extended to the community that this was going to be a service to help them through this COVID period. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that you and the team, and I believe it was even police cadets that went out and went door to door and actually, had people who told them they were interested. And, we did have them come to the city hall and actually put through their applications for this money. So, from end to end, I think we could show the community and see that you folks were really active in maneuvering through all these processes and some new stuff, as we've never had this pandemic before, but telling the community that we're here and we stand shoulder to shoulder with them to navigate through all of this. So thanks so much for what you're doing, and that we're crossing our fingers hoping that we have some of the businesses that get to benefit from that fund. Thanks.
Thank you. Before I go to you, Councilman Rollins, let me just poll the rest of the council, see if there's anybody else who has questions. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Councilman Rollins.
Councilmember Byrd, too.
Oh, okay, I didn't see you. Can we go to Councilman Burke since he hasn't had a chance to ask any questions yet, please?
Good idea.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Burke.
Thank you very much, Rich, and thank you, Mayor Hernandez. Great report, Chief. Thank you for really narrowing these numbers down. The one particular case at Mar Vista, sets off alarms because that's an at-risk population there. Is that person hospitalized?
As far as I know, no. They've just been quarantined within their residence. I know Gabby can probably expand on that, but I don't believe the individual was hospitalized.
Good enough, thank you. And when we talk about active cases, is that somebody like this Mar Vista individual, not hospitalized, but they've contracted the virus?
Yes, they're on that active case list of 7 right now.
Therefore, okay. And then next would be,
if I may just interrupt here, Chief. Actually, the individual was hospitalized, and unfortunately, today we received the news that the individual did pass due to COVID.
Really, without going to ICU or anything, or
he was in ICU.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question. I'm sorry to hear about that, but when we talk about active cases versus hospitalizations versus the numbers that are in ICUs, can we get a feel for what's happening out there?
So I know that we are well within our metrics, and we have plenty of hospital beds and ICU beds available, as well as ventilators. In fact, I think I might actually have that slide. But I do believe in terms of hospitals and their occupancy right now, there you can see on the bottom of this screen right here is 41% of our ICU beds are available, and our goal is 20%. And then you can.
I was looking at all these numbers in the lower cases there, Chief, and it looks great. I mean, Average daily test at 293. The goal is 150. Percent of ventilators currently available, 88%. The goal is 25. Change in the 3-day average for hospitalizations, -4%. The goal is 10. I mean, those are great numbers.
Yes, they are phenomenal numbers. It's just now kind of hitting the goal on the other 3 metrics that are listed right above.
Okay, good. Sorry to hear about our Mar Vista neighbor.
Yeah.
That is the first I have heard of that as well.
Yeah. Well, our hearts and prayers go out to the family members and friends and neighbors of the individual who we lost.
I'm sorry, and finally since it was at Mar Vista, did we move in and test everybody there?
No, because testing is voluntary, and I'll let Gabby expand on what additional measures they have taken or what they have done over the last week.
Thank you.
No, as the chief just mentioned, testing is voluntarily. We haven't had any further cases over the last 2 weeks. We have stepped up with the cleaning. The residents are actually, they took it on themselves. We provided them with all the cleaning supplies, and as of right now, we haven't received any other indication that anybody else has been affected by COVID.
Thank you.
And that really goes to show why our numbers are continue to stay low, is because everyone's doing their part and staying diligent.
Any more questions for Chief? All right, thank you, Chief.
Rich has his hand up.
Oh, I couldn't see it. Oh, that's right. I forgot you had another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this may not be for the chief. It may be more for Tony, but it's related to this particular subject. Now that we've gone down to a lower level and you can have 25% occupancy indoors, I've been hearing that many of the businesses, while that's a step in the right direction, being able to make a profit or at least break even has been very difficult when you drop down to 25%. When you include all the staffing and stuff that needs to go in to provide that service. I was just wondering if Tony or if anybody else has had any kind of feedback from the businesses in relation to that situation.
That's a good question. We haven't really received any specific feedback with regard to the 25% opening. However, we have received feedback just in general from the businesses that some of them are trying their best. Others have decided that they're just not going to go to the trouble of opening up even outdoors and/or with such limited capacity. Because like you said, it takes quite a bit of staffing. It takes, all the special equipment. It takes, getting things, set up and cordoned off and whatnot. And so it's quite a bit of work. So from what we're hearing is that some folks are just waiting until they can open back up again to move forward.
And you said that the city is taking a proactive step as far as perhaps utilizing parking spaces for restaurants to have like tables, because in many situations there's not a lot of storefront walkways in front of the areas to be able to actually use it for dining, and then still make it easily accessible. And I guess the other question I had is by when they have used those sidewalks right in front of their buildings, do we run into any ADA guideline problems with that?
We require them to meet all ADA requirements. So that's why the ones that you see out there are going to be a little bit limited because most of our sidewalks are not that wide. They do have the opportunity to use parking spaces as long as they have the landlord approval. Honestly, it doesn't look like many of the businesses are taking advantage of that, at least not the restaurants. Some of our salons were back, behind their businesses. And so we have been working with them to allow them to do that. And then answering a question that came up earlier, our code enforcement officer, as well as one of our police sergeants, are also going around daily to our businesses to not only check on them and make sure that they're registered, but also to give them the latest news as far as what they can and cannot do at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Chief Salinas or Tony? All right, hearing none, thank you for the excellent work and the presentation. Look forward to hearing your next report. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent calendar agenda. We have 2 items. Item number 4, approved minutes of the City Council for the regular meeting of October 19, 2020. And item number 5, receive and file the finance cash disbursements for October 14, 2020 through October 2020. So with that, can I get a motion to approve in a second?
I'm sorry. Can I make just one comment on the minutes? Or I'm not sure if this is the time to do it.
Do you want to pull that item for discussion? You have to pull that item for discussion if you.
Okay, I guess I better.
Okay. All right. So we pulled one item for discussion. We have one item number 5 then for approval.
So I'll move to approve the consent agenda for item number 5.
Okay. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Okay. And do we need a voice vote on that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, please. So approval for item number 5. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Byrd?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
I thought we were pulling item 5 for discussion. Do I have it backwards?
No, we're pulling number 4.
We're pulling the minutes.
Okay. Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to item 4. Councilman Rollins?
Yes. I would like to be able to have it reflected in the minutes, the people that I recognize from the home delivered meals. I know I was reading through the minutes and it basically, it said that Councilman Rollins gave an inspiration, and part of that inspiration was to recognize those volunteers who had provided many years of service, and there was really no recognition of the service that they did or the names of those people. So I don't know how to handle that necessarily, but I would like it reflected the names of the people who were recognized for their volunteer service over the many years.
So Councilmember Rollins, I can address that since I'm the one who does the minutes for each council meeting. It's pretty standard protocol for me just to write who does the inspiration, since you guys have such diverse inspirations each time. I don't usually detail them in depth. I'm happy to change that practice if the council determines that they would like a more in-depth description on each one. Happy to do that at your guys' direction.
I'd just like to make a recommendation that we do it for this particular set of minutes and this particular inspiration, unless we want to direct the city clerk to note anytime we name somebody in our inspirations to include their name.
If that's a motion, I would second that.
Okay. Does that sound good?
That works for me.
Okay, so is that a second?
Yes, I thought there was a second already.
Okay.
But okay,
This is not on the agenda though, so I'm kind of waiting to hear from Kevin.
We're kind of in a gray area here, considering the last ideas. I don't have a problem per se, so long as there's no discussion of the merits or the substance of this. if this is just simply direction to the city clerk at any time a name is given in the minutes, I think that's fine and appropriate during this conversation. But I don't want to have any discussion on the merits of such a change, if that makes any sense.
Do we need a second and a vote?
We need a second and a vote.
I seconded it.
We have a second. We're just ready for the vote. Okay. So Madam Clerk, can you go ahead and take the vote on that, please?
Absolutely. Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We know we're giving you more work, but I think I can understand the value of that. And I did, if that was all you had, Councilman Rollins, I do have something else.
Okay.
Okay. On page 4 of 4, under council member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items, under my comments, could you please change that the mayor announced she attended RDP 21 and blah, blah, blah. We're looking at ways to get the Navy base to be more vocal. It's not during the dredging and sand replenishment program, but it's in support of.
Absolutely, Mayor. I'll make those changes.
All right, thank you so much. And if no one else has any comments or changes to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, Mayor, I missed who made the second.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes for item number 4.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on now to item number 8, public hearings. We have the Plan Development Conditional Use Permit number PHCU 869 for Cottage Urgent Care Clinic at 563 B and C West Channel Islands Boulevard. Continued public hearing from 10/19/2020. The hearing is now open. It is 8:26 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose with this item? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you. And do you have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And staff, Tony, Mr. Stewart, will you like to go ahead and present your report?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to you and the council staff. Real quick, Madam City Clerk, we've got the wrong presentation up for this one. This presentation that you just had up will be the applicants, which will follow the one that I'll be giving. So if you can give you a second to pull up the correct one, I'll go ahead and begin at that point. And just a reminder, this is actually a continued public hearing. It was continued from our last meeting. And this will be the opportunity to actually hopefully take action on this item this evening. So, how are we doing it with that, Christy?
All right, Tony, I'm getting there. Hold on just one moment, sir.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I will say that at the end of the presentation, the applicant, Ronald Biscaro from Cottage Urgent Care, as well as his team, are here to present another PowerPoint to discuss their project a little bit further.
Tony, how's that? Do you see the screen?
I don't see it.
Yeah, this would be a good time for a stretch break.
Yes, it would. There it is.
Like,
Stretch quickly. If you would like that break, I'll hold for a minute.
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And thank you, Christy. That's the one. So next slide, please. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is a continued public hearing for a conditional use permit to operate an urgent care clinic. It would be the first one here in the city of Port Hueneme. The location is 563 B and C West Channel Islands Boulevard. So that's in the Mandalay Village Marketplace. And it's in the building immediately next to the Habit where Minchie's used to be. And then there's been a vacant suite there since I believe this Blockbuster left. And then Taco Bell is just off to the east of that. The two suites total 3,227 square feet in size. The zoning is C1 commercial. The applicant is proposing to be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they will have 3 employees per day and 2 to 3 patients per hour is what they expect to see at the clinic. Next slide, please. So this is just an aerial overview of the Mandalay Center showing in boxed yellow there the location within the shopping center there along West Channel Islands. Next slide, please. And then site plan basically showing the same. Next slide, please. So the floor plan, hopefully you all got the larger versions of that. But the floor plan, the applicant is proposing to combine both of the suites and do a substantial remodel, as you can see. Well, there'll be a large lobby in front with one combined entrance as opposed to the 2 separate ones now. And those will be the only exterior modifications, by the way. There'll be several exam rooms, a lab, nurses stations, offices, and other ancillary uses for this urgent care facility. Next slide, please. And this is just, again, a photo of showing the Habit and then the 2 suites that the proposed business will occupy. Next slide, please. So currently, our code requires a conditional use permit for medical offices and clinics within the C1 zone. The CUP process, as you probably are well versed in at this point with all of our cannabis businesses, allows the decision makers to have additional discretionary powers when taking action upon an application to analyze the proposed use's effect on the long-term health, safety, and welfare of the community as a whole. Cottage Urgent Care is expanding their chain of facilities. They're currently coming into Ventura County throughout, and they are also up in Santa Barbara County. When staff initially had this application, we were a little bit concerned. I'll discuss the cons in a second, but the pros of the application is that we will have patients and professional level employees generating additional foot traffic in the center. We'll be filling empty suites, and then we're going to be providing a service that's not otherwise available in the city right now. Mm-hmm. However, the cons, which we discussed with the applicant, and they'll probably discuss a little bit further, are the loss of space of potential retail sales or sales tax generating use. And this, of course, being Port Hueneme, we've got very limited space for retail uses, and Mandalay Village Marketplace is our most productive or busiest center. And so that was one of the cons that we were looking at when we were looking at the long-term viability of this business, because with the amount of money that they will be spending, this conditional use permit would be would have quite an impact on their business model as well. Next slide, please. So the fiscal impact, again, the potential loss of retail space or sales tax generating use space is something that the council needs to consider. But then again, one of the suites has been vacant since the building was remodeled, which has been several years now. And the other suite was occupied by a business that didn't last probably more than a year and wasn't very successful at that. So we haven't seen a lot of retail sales tax coming out of these 2 spaces, in other words. But at the other end of the argument is that the proposed use would be generating the community with a valuable service and also provide patients as well as the folks that are bringing them to and from or will be with them at the urgent care, as well as professional level employees who have the potential to cross-shop other businesses in the marketplace and thus provide additional sales tax revenue. Next slide, please. With regard to CEQA, the project is exempt because it's basically occupying a existing facility. The next slide, please. And so the recommendation this evening is to open the continued public hearing and take testimonial and documentary evidence, close the continued public hearing and consider this evidence. After considering the evidence, adopt a resolution of the City of Port Hueneme granting approval of the conditional use permit for the Cottage urgent care and take such additional related action as may be desirable. And so this concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions. And as I mentioned, the applicant and his team are here as well, and they also have a subsequent PowerPoint presentation that they'd like to show you and explain their business model a little bit further. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing that. Are there any questions for Mr. Stewart at this time? All right, why don't we go ahead and proceed with the presentation from the owners. Very good.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jessica Kinahan. I'm with DUDEC and have been very fortunate to be supporting the Cottage Health team with this really exciting and great opportunity project. We think it's going to be a wonderful asset to the community, and we really appreciate staff's careful consideration of our application. So kudos to Mr. Stewart and his team for getting us to where we are today. I'd like to just introduce a couple folks today. We'll have Ron Biscaro from Cottage Health, who is the fearless leader of the team and taking this project forward, and also Ryan Dan with Donahue Schreiber, the real estate entity that has been managing the village, and may be able to provide some additional context as far as some of the concerns related to sales tax and other issues. So with that, I will turn it over to Ron. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Ron Biscaro, the Vice President for Project Management at Cottage Health, and appreciate the opportunity to present our case for the Urgent Care Center in the City of Port Hueneme. Next slide, please. Again, a bit about Cottage Health. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, which is our flagship hospital in Santa Barbara. I've worked there since 2003, primarily on our facility master plan development of all our 3 facilities in Goleta, San Ynez, and Santa Barbara. We have regional programs in neurosurgery, pediatrics, trauma, and laboratory services through Pacific Diagnostics Lab. And in 2018, we did a very comprehensive market assessment of the Tri-Counties area and believe there was a lot of unmet demand in the area of urgent care. And so what we're going to talk about today is the extent to which we are developing these centers, and specifically the one here in Port Hueneme. Next slide, please. Again, nationally, there are about 9,000 urgent care centers. Again, why urgent care? I mean, emergency departments are great. They're important for our communities and all the hospitals that serve our communities here in the Tri-Counties, but really people want more accessible and affordable options. So urgent care has evolved and they've expanded considerably over the last several years. Hospitals have become more engaged with them. And again, our goal here is to develop options in all 3 counties. And again, part of this is driven by the unmet need for primary care, especially primary care physicians. And I think that's true not only in the state of California, locally here in our area, but nationally as well. Again, and more importantly, I think trend-wise, about 25% of urgent care centers are located in shopping centers. Very convenient opportunities for people to come and get in for their services and cross-shop if they need to. Next slide, please. Here are some of the experience features that we've developed. We've opened 6 of these urgent care centers, several in Goleta. We just opened one Monday in Ventura. We have one in Oxnard, one in Camarillo. Several in development. I'll show you the map of all of them. But again, what do we use them for? Well, as Tony discussed the floor plan, they're all very similar, all about 3,000 to 3,300 square feet. have on-site x-ray. We have prepackaged medicine, making it very convenient for people. Open every day of the year for 12 hours, especially in the early morning and the evening when people really need care if they can't get into their primary care or their physician. It's a very highly concierge-driven model. Again, people greeted at the door, walk right into a waiting room, and it's a very, very fluid process. Fixed pricing, so you come in and you pay a fixed price regardless of the service. And our goal is to get people in and out within 30 to 45 minutes. You can schedule an appointment, they can kind of walk in, so lots of options. And it's very integrated with our Cottage Health Epic model, which is our patient information system. And we do refer patients to local providers, be it any community that they're in. We do have the backup of cardiology, of emergency medicine, of radiology physicians at Cottage as well, if issues come up during a patient's stay. Next slide, please. Just an example, this is the urgent care center at Hollister. It's in a small shopping center, a little smaller shopping center than Mandalay. But again, we opened this one on June 30th and very convenient for people in the upper Goleta area, northern part of Goleta. In the next couple of slides, if you don't mind, show you the front lobby. So again, all of them will look very similar. The one in Port Hueneme will look just like this, maybe a little bit different orientation based on the floor plan. And the next slide will show the clinical area. Very crisp, very clean, and really a welcoming place that we're trying to create for patients that we serve. Next slide shows the extent to which we have opened the sites. Again, we had one open in Ventura on Monday. The green dots show the ones that are open. We have several under construction, including the ones on the northern side up in San Luis Obispo. One will be open in a couple of weeks there and one later in the year. And then we have other planned sites throughout the area. And the one, the blue dot closest to the Channel Islands is the one in Port Hueneme that we label as planned for now. Next slide, please. Again, the benefits, some of which Tony mentioned. Again, we believe these are important for the public health and the welfare of the community. Certainly a new service for the city of Port Hueneme, and a great medical option to offset the other businesses at Mandalay Shopping Center, and also for the neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood, and I think it would be hopefully a welcome service. And as Tony mentioned too, we do expand opportunities for medical professionals who work in our centers. Next slide. And then this site, my colleague Scott Allen, who's also on this call in the background, my project director, we loved this site from the very beginning when we saw it in early 2019. Again, we worked with Donahue Schreiber and Ryan Dan's on the call too, in case any questions come up, but they've been very supportive. We have other sites with Donahue Schreiber as well. Again, a lot of cross-shopping opportunities for people who visit our centers. Most of them are going to be in shopping centers. Many patients will visit other stores and generate tax revenue. And so while singularly, the urgent care does not provide sales tax revenue because it's a nonprofit entity, the shopping center does provide $2.2 million a year in tax revenue as of 2019 data that Ryan gave us. So we think this is beneficial in an indirect way, certainly, and also a direct way in terms of healthcare. And as Tony also mentioned, the medical use is consistent with the commercial retail zoning. So again, we're appreciative of the opportunity to present to Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council, and hope you support our request so that we can move forward and develop this center, get into our working drawings, and submit some plans to the city in a few months, probably early next year, and open the center sometime next summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see hands up already. Councilman Rollins, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm pretty excited about this type of a service within our community. I was looking on Yelp the other day and for urgent care, and I think the closest one was like 5 miles away. So I think the fact that we'll have one close to home, I think will be good. Along with that, I wanted to know, based on your model, what types of insurances does Cottage accept for you to be able to utilize that facility, assuming you have insurance? Is it a PPO model, an HMO? Can Medi-Cal use it? Can you comment on that a little?
Yeah, my understanding, I'm not on the operations side, but I'm familiar to some degree with respect to the contracting we've done with all the various medical insurers throughout the region. We're still working on developing contract relationships, again, mostly on a flat fee basis. There is no distinction between Medi-Cal and Medicare or any other payers. So I think we're going to, make this broadly used and broadly available to any members of the community.
So why, based on your an urgent care, why would I go to an urgent care instead of, say, a hospital?
Well, I think simply stated, if you can come and see an urgent care provider and be in and out in 34 to 45 minutes, I think that's a very convenient option for you. If you go to any hospital, and I won't mention any names, but we have hospitals in all our regions. I used to be a Catholic Healthcare West and Dignity person myself before I joined Cottage back in 2003. I mean, you're going to wait a long time in the emergency department, and you're going to be triaged based on the medical condition that you have. So if you have a minor issue, you can be in and out of the urgent care in 30 to 45 minutes. I don't think you're going to want to wait 1, 2, or 3 hours for a triage visit in an emergency department when you can do something that costs you less and allows you to get in and out with a diagnosis as quickly as possible. So I think it's really a judgment that the patient needs to make. If someone shows and presents to an urgent care and is in a critical state, a 911 can be called, or that patient can be referred to the nearest emergency department. So we won't treat who we can't treat, and it's all for minor issues.
So a patient makes a mistake and they go to an urgent care figuring that you're able to take care of them, and their problem surpasses what you're able to deal with. Do you have some form of direct connect to like ambulances or paramedics so that they can go to a more appropriate facility?
Yeah, if someone has an absolute critical condition and presents to urgent care, and they probably should have gone to the emergency department, the closest emergency department. We won't, we would stabilize as best we could and call 911 for an ambulance to immediately transport that person to the nearest hospital. So that's as simple as I can make it. I mean, we're not going to, life-saving treatment. We're there, of course, to take care of people, but not to do things that we're not, qualified for. I mean, this is a nurse-based urgent care. We will not have physicians at this urgent care. It's a nurse-based system, nurse practitioners. If they have any questions, they can call the emergency department physician at Cottage Hospital. If they have any issues, they can call a cardiologist if they need to at Cottage Hospital. But really what's best for the patient is for them to be immediately sent, or by ambulance if necessary, hopefully not, to the nearest emergency department.
And this is a follow-up to what I think you just mentioned. You said initially you're going to have 3 staff members operating this facility, but you have several kind of rooms, rooms for them to be. Is that just, what would those 3 staff people be? And is that just a beginning step, and that you are hoping to expand the amount of, say, nurse practitioners?
Yeah, at any given time, there'll be a nurse or 2 nurse practitioners in the center. The other concierges or support staff, they can do radiology procedures, they can do point of care testing. We have any one of these centers has the same number of exam rooms. We have 4 exam rooms, a treatment room, a radiology room. So, we expect 2 to 3 patients per hour on average, depending on where they're located. So, from a professional staff standpoint, since we're covering 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, you've got to have 3 to 4 people overlapping at any given time. So at any given time, there'll be 3 people there, maybe 4 at the most, unless volume is really, really high. And we don't expect that in any of our centers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilman Goma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. Biscaro, for the information you presented here.
Sure.
I'm somewhat familiar with Cottage because over the course of my lifetime, I've had projects and other people that I work with in Santa Barbara. But for our community here, they may not be so familiar with Cottage Hospital or the name. Can you give us just a little bit of background about how I want to say powerful because you are it up in Santa Barbara, but certainly give us a little bit more about the history of Cottage. Thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. Cottage has been in our community since 1888. So we've had a long history in Santa Barbara, and in 1994 became Cottage Health System when it essentially merged with San Ynez Valley Cottage Hospital. And then the year later, it became a 3-hospital system when Goleta Valley Cottage Hospital came in. I used to actually be the administrator at Dignity Hospital in Santa Barbara, St. Francis Medical Center, which closed in 2003. We turned that location into affordable housing for our Cottage Health System employees, actually, which was a major project. It took about 10 years in town. So we've had, we're probably the largest hospital provider between Stanford and Los Angeles. Again, not taking anything away from the hospitals in all our other communities that we partner with and collaborate with, especially in this COVID situation that we've had for the last 6 or 7 months. But we do have a greater breadth of services than most facilities because of the focus on neurosurgery, neurology, pediatrics, and trauma. So I think plus we have the benefit of a residency program in radiology and general surgery and also in primary care, internal medicine. So there's a lot more happening there with the Sansom Clinic as well. We have a lot of physicians in our community, over 700, many of which are still very active. So again, we service a wide range of the community. Only about, I think, less than 70% of our patients come from the greater Santa Barbara area, which is Carpinteria all the way to Goleta, and over 30% come from north of us or south of us. And so when we did the assessment, for example, with urgent care, we realized that while there's a lot of urgent care providers, some of whom are sponsored by different hospitals and some aren't, some are independent, we felt we could have a niche there and broaden our scope of service, broaden our primary care outreach to various communities. And our commitment now is to have about 14 to 18 of these urgent care centers spread throughout the Tri-Counties. And we're well on our way. We've built 6 and we've got 3 or 4 more coming online between now and end of the year and early March of next year.
And I know you're one of the major employers in Santa Barbara, but tell us a little bit about how you work with the community, because I know you're recognized for a lot of work that you do with, like the underserved and the special communities.
Well, thank you for your question. We have the benefit of substantial community assets that we've raised through various fundraising means, and we dedicate many millions of dollars every year to various community agencies. Specifically, over the last several years, we've undertaken a lot of work in the population health arena. We have a parish nurse program that actually we started at St. Francis back in early 1990s that Cottage inherited and continued. So we work with lots of churches. We also have a lot of collaboration with our neighborhood clinics who minister to many thousands and thousands of underserved population. And so we've been at the forefront in supporting with other community entities, other foundations, our neighborhood clinics, which I think are a valuable resource in the Santa Barbara area. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Gama?
Yes, thank you. I think our community needs more access to healthcare, and I think it's widely needed on this side of town because we really don't have any alternatives for primary care. And sometimes you could have a condition, and because it's such a long distance to go get it taken care of, it could get worse. So I really appreciate the fact that you looked at Hueneme as a potential site. And I'm wondering though, how successful is this model with just nurse practitioners? Because it kind of threw me for a loop to know that you're going to have a 3,000 square foot facility without a doctor or a physician, a managing physician in it. And also, will you be treating work injuries, or is it just primary care?
Yeah, good question, Councilman Gama. I mean, we contemplated whether to have a physician-based urgent care. And after the research that we did, we worked with a national partner, urgent care partners out of Minneapolis, who've developed many of these urgent care centers nationally. And many of them are nurse-based and many of them are physician-based. But as I did mention and allude to earlier, we have the, a nurse practitioner, a patient care practitioner is licensed to work under a physician, and our ER physicians are the ones that ultimately sponsor them. And so if issues arise during a patient's visit where we require consultation from our emergency department or a cardiologist or radiologist, we have that access. And I think in the scope of practice of a nurse practitioner, they know exactly what they can do and can't do. And so that's where it really becomes, if it's a minor emergency, a minor issue that can be treated, we have a broad range of scope, but we won't go beyond our scope. And any patient who would require a higher level of care would be referred to the emergency department or another appropriate practitioner. So I guess, we made the call to go with a nurse-based system. I think we have the backup. We have the backup in place to support the nurses there. And should issues arise with patients that require more intervention, more medical care, they'll be referred appropriately.
If somebody were to come through the door with a broken arm and you confirm it through an X-ray, what would be the protocol for that person?
Well, I don't know that a nurse will be able to set that arm, so that patient will likely be X-rayed and maybe referred to the emergency department or an orthopedist. It all depends on the severity of what it is. So, again, there's a limit to their practice, and not being a physician, I'm not going to make the distinction in terms of what a person can and can't do, but I will say that if it's beyond their scope, they will not be able to do it.
And then I was a little unclear on the insurances, workers' comp versus primary care. Will you accept both?
Yes, and sorry I didn't answer your question fully. We will have testing for workman's comp, blood tests and so forth that are going to be available should employers want that. So we'll have a bathroom set up just for that and point of care testing for that as well. So we will be, open for workman's compensation issues if they are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I have a question. If there are no other council members who have any comments or questions, what is your policy, or what is the urgent care system's policy on serving people who don't have insurance or who are homeless without insurance? Somebody walks in, they're bleeding from the head from a fall. What would you do?
Well, my understanding, Madam Mayor Hernandez, is that they would receive care if they presented care, presented to the urgent care center for treatment. I've not seen any policy to the contrary at this point, so that would be my answer at this point. But I'm not on the medical side, so I can't speak to it more than that.
Okay. And do you have any experience with any of your facilities who were in the fire areas up north? I know Santa Barbara's had their share of fires. What was the role of your urgent care facilities during those fires in providing medical services, either to first responders or to the public?
Yeah, unfortunately, we only opened our first center about 4 months ago, so we have no experience with any disasters yet. So again, we have such a new service that we've not had the opportunity to utilize those services for any disasters to date. So I don't have any experience to share with you in that regard.
Do you have a disaster plan for addressing surge capacity if you become overwhelmed?
Well, we do have a very comprehensive disaster plan for the hospital, for all 3 hospitals, and we have had to exercise that like I'm sure hospitals in Ventura County have at CMH, Ventura County, and St. John's, Pleasant Valley, et cetera. So I think we have a very comprehensive plan, and if it comes to pass where, you know, our hospital emergency departments are overwhelmed, our urgent care centers will be available in the various communities to service patients as needed, is my understanding.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm really glad to have that kind of resource in our community. I think it's needed, and it's comforting to know you're going to be there. So thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I appreciate your support and your questions as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll go on to our next slide. Oh, no, we need to vote on this, don't we? Let's see. I got carried away with the discussion. Okay, at this time, we don't have any public comment, no further comments. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The time is 9 o'clock and the hearing is closed. Where's my gavel? Okay, there we go. So we have a recommendation to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme granting approval of the conditional use permit number PHCU-869 Cottage Urgent Care, and take such additional related action as may be desirable. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay. Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I think there might have been a tie for number 2 there.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll let you decide. Okay.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, congratulations. All right, moving on to item 7, plan development permit number PHCU-882, minor modification for the color palette revisions for Habitat for Humanity 5-unit townhome project at 716 San Pedro Street, where we were this morning, thanking the cannabis businesses for their contributions to this project. The hearing is now open. It is 9:01 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, I do.
Okay, do we have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Mr. Stewart, are you ready to provide your report?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, thank you.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. So this is a minor modification. Normally those are handled at staff level, but because the City Council requested to see the revised color scheme, we are bringing it back to you for final action. So next slide, please, Christy. Christy, next slide, please. Thank you. So per the City Council direction, the applicant was requested to revise the proposed color scheme of the previously otherwise approved 5-unit townhome project to be constructed by Habitat for Humanity at 716 San Pedro Street. Next slide, please. So, and hopefully you all got the actual color chips this time that the applicants provided, even though they're still, excuse me, fairly small in size. They give you a much better idea of what the proposed colors will be. So this was the previously proposed color scheme, and how it differs from the one that we'll discuss in a minute here is, first of all, the color palette, which I'll go into also in a couple of slides, was quite a bit bolder. Had the yellow ochre or tan there. It had a darker blue and other shades, and they were applied in well, basically each of the 5 units there has several different colors potentially on each one of them. So it was basically looking at, or concerns were with regard to not only the colors themselves, but also it appeared the application of the colors on the 5 units. Next slide, please. So the proposed color scheme is a little bit more in keeping per council's direction with some of the other townhome developments here in the city. Where each unit now will just have, for consistency's sake, to kind of tie the project together, the same roof colors. The angled portion over the garage will have the same off-white tone. But instead of having, say, blue and gray on one unit plus the ivory, each unit will now just have the ivory and then one accent color. So for instance, the unit on the left, on the right end, and the one in the middle will be blue and ivory. You have a couple basically tan and ivory, and then you'll have kind of hidden behind the tree there, a gray and ivory. So the colors will be applied in a more consistent fashion, I guess, but it will still provide each unit its own identity. Next slide, please. So the previously proposed color scheme was, like I said, fairly bold. It had dark brown doors, bright white stucco and garage door colors, had a shade of kind of orangey tan, a medium to dark blue, an ivory, and then a gray. And of these colors, only the ivory and the gray are proposed to remain. Next slide, please. So the new color palette, as you can see, has been toned down quite a bit. It still maintains kind of a beachy feel, but now the bright white's only reserved for the garage doors and the front doors, but the white wall color is now an off-white to kind of soften and provide a richer appearance. Like I said, the ivory and the gray will remain, and then the blue is more of a light to medium Cape Cod style blue. Next slide, please. And so the recommendation here is to open this public hearing and take testimonial and documentary evidence, and then close the public hearing and consider the evidence. And after considering the evidence, adopt a resolution of the City Council of Port Hueneme granting approval of Plan Development Permit PHPD 882 Habitat for Humanity minor modification, and take such additional related action as may be desirable. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions, and I believe that Darcy Taylor with Habitat for Humanity and his architects are here as well to answer any questions that you may have for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Anybody have any questions regarding this change in the color palette? Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just thank you, Mr. Stewart, for presenting this information, because I know that it was just one of those questions that we had for you and Habitat. And so looking at these colors and being at the event today, right at the corner of this Habitat for Humanity project, it really now kind of blends in with all the other colors that are seen within the palettes of the adjoining homes and structures. And so I really appreciate you going back to the drawing board and seeing what we could do to adjust then this color palette. I appreciate your work on this. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Madam Mayor Pro Tem's comments and express my appreciation for making the color change. I know it was additional work and time and money, but I think in the long run it'll pay off, and it does, I think, lend itself to the more of a beachy feeling that we want in this community. And I like the new color scheme very much. So thank you for that. Councilman Gama, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to
go ahead.
echo what you said. I think it was a beautiful change. It looks really good, and appreciate the spirit of working with us on it. And yeah, I think it looks great. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, are you here? Do you want to make any comments, or any of the architects? Would you like to make any comments? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Hinkle, and I'm with Main Street Architects. We're happy that you guys are appreciative of the revision, and we're glad that this will be a better fit for the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to make any comments or have any questions for the team here we have tonight? Okay. Okay. Do we have any public comments to hear? Okay. All right, seeing none and without objection, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, the time being 9:09 p.m. And the recommendation is to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme granting approval of Plan Development Permit PHPD 882 Habitat for Humanity minor modification and take such additional related action that might be desirable. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Move to approve.
Okay, it's a race. And Madam Clerk, are you prepared to take a roll call vote? I know. Yes. I know you're juggling things out there, so we can wait.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go by the hands that I saw first and voices. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
Councilmember Brick?
Yes.
Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
And Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again to Habitat for Humanity. We're excited to see this project come to fruition. Okay, we are moving on to item number 8 under the Administration Department. These are business items, and we have the award of contract for Information Technology Master Plan, the ITMP. And I believe we have Aaron here, Aaron Wiedemeyer, who is our Information Technology Manager, who's going to provide the report. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Wiedemeyer, you may proceed.
I'm going to start with a sound check, make sure everything's good. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Pro Tem, council members. The item before you next is the award for the contract for the Information Technology Master Plan. Staff's recommendation is that you select Third Wave Corporation to the IT Master Plan and authorize the city manager to execute a contract subject to the review and approval of the city attorney. Staff issued this RFP and received 13 bids. Charles Peretz and I reviewed all 13 of those proposals and scored them according to the criteria listed in the RFP. The categories were responsiveness to the RFP, experience in preparing IT master plans, staff credentials, budget and schedule projections, and the sample plans that were provided with their proposals. The report that we provided to you included those weighted composite scores for each of those original 13 responses. Subsequently, the proposals determined to be the strongest 4 in nature were provided for the city manager for his additional review after we narrowed it down a bit. And then after final discussion and additional questioning of that top respondent, staff recommends that Third Wave Corporation be recommends Third Wave Corporation based on the following criteria. They have highly qualified and experienced firm and staff. They have a relevant, extensive California municipal experience. The sample master IT plan that they provided was very thorough. 98% of the IT master plans that they have provided, and the number they provided to us was 153 out of 156, have been approved, funded, and implemented. So they have a great rate of providing IT master plans that serve a purpose. And then they also have a patented government business process improvement that they call rapid workflow, and it's specific to government entities. Third Wave has provided a fixed fee proposal at $70,000. And the current CIP budget allocated was $75,000 for the IT master plan. So the project is within our budget constraints. Once the contract is executed, Third Wave have a process and timeline to develop the IT master plan. Major topics include assessment of our current IT infrastructure, staffing levels, and work details. Third Wave will also perform interviews with all department staff to determine their potential needs for the future as it relates to the IT infrastructure. One of the highly visible major items on the horizon is the ERP replacement plan, and they definitely will take a look at that for us. The IT master plan then will provide a proposed roadmap, including order of magnitude costs for implementation, and that will converge the needs of the resources that we currently have with the intended 5-year plan. Culmination of the project will be an executive presentation to council, including that IT master plan. And we anticipate that we will probably return to council either late January or early February with that presentation and that IT master plan. That concludes my summary of the staff report for you, and I'm available to take any questions that any of you may have.
Okay, thank you. Excellent job. Great. Very comprehensive report. All right, Councilman Rollins, go ahead.
Currently, do you have a replacement plan for your computers now, like the staff computers? Is it like on a 2-year plan, a 4-year plan, and will this company advise you accordingly?
Yes, we do have a current replacement schedule right now for desktops and laptops. That's done on a 5-year basis with review. So for each budget cycle, I pull up the list of computers that would reach that 5-year plan. We have a similar 5-year time span for major infrastructure like switches and routers and firewalls. But part of what they will do is review what we currently have in place for a replacement schedule and tell us if we are in the ballpark, if we should shorten it, if we can potentially increase it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Wiedemeyer? Councilman Gama.
Thank you, Aaron. I really appreciate it. You know, I was reading through this proposal and I was like, man, this is serious stuff. This is technical. And then, you know, we've had these other master plans and I was waiting for the sticker shock. And when I saw the $70,000, I'm like, wow, this seems like a highly value added project. And how does it incorporate 5G and, you know, staying up with the obsolescence of technology? And I think I read through the plan that's kind of what this is all about, is positioning your assets for the future in regard to.
Yeah, that's something that we'll have them looking at, and they probably have a little better understanding with their staff than I possess, to tell you the honest truth about what's coming down the road. And that's been part of the challenge here. When I was I was primarily reactive to the needs. And so we didn't have plans in place short of a 5-year replacement schedule. A lot of the things that came down the road, we didn't have a plan in place to service those potential needs. And so we were, again, reactive at the last minute, as opposed to, okay, anticipating that 5G is going to come into the area and the mobile units that we have in the cars for the police department, or potentially laptops that we're giving to field staff, need to have that capability, because they're going to start processing work orders from the field, or the officers are now going to be reviewing body cam data on their laptops. And so those kind of plans have really been lacking from what I've been able to provide to the city.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, data storage. I know with the body cameras, that's a big expense and issue. And so this company then will take a look at whatever plans or wherever we're going with that, and then try and advise us on the best way moving forward in effect to try and help us leverage cost and viability from our assets. Is that?
That's something that I surely anticipate them providing for us. Some of the comparison, should we have on-site storage or should we start renting cloud space? Where's that break-even point when you consider on-site backup of local resources? How much anticipated storage are we going to need in the future? Is that going to continue to grow and outpace what I've done? We have delayed some purchases that we originally had in the CIP for local storage because we're going to wait until we get the results of this, and maybe that expending that money for local storage doesn't make sense with where we're going in the future.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Aaron, for scaling this in. As you know, we have all these other plans that we've been part of, and this would be number 4 within the last couple of years. So with our undertaking, with this being a strategic plan for IT, and I don't think we've ever really done this, right? I mean, this is something first, and it's going to be a plan for the next 5 years, right? So I'm wondering if we could somehow take of all these other strategic plans that we are coming to the very end, trying to finalize, et cetera, could we take and identify like the best practices of what we did within the framework of a strategic plan, and then somehow kind of integrate those best practices into this so that we don't repeat maybe some of the things that didn't go right during the strategic plans, making sure that this one goes well for us. Not saying that any of the others didn't, but just, incorporating some of the fresh practices that we just went through. And then secondly is to integrate then possibly the findings with the strategic plan and any of the others that tie in, like the general parks plan or the big plan that Tony's working on. Is there any kind of an integration component of all of those items with what you're going to be doing here in IT?
Yeah, I participated in the strategic planning, and I was pleasantly surprised how well the other departments supported the need for an IT master plan so that we could accomplish some of the grander goals that we had set for the city. And there have been some challenges that the IT department had to try to deal with in terms of not being able to provide services because we weren't ready for it. Expanding on one of the projects that BRIC is big on getting with our GoGov project, and understanding whether we were going to need additional resources to provide that, or whether that would be able to reside stands, but to then be able to react better to the needs of the citizens, requests from the city council in terms of new resources that you'd like to see. Potentially, if we put a dog park in place, do we need to have a camera out there? Adding all the additional cameras that we're putting into the parks and the beach now, being able to view those cameras from within city resources put a serious strain on the current internet connection that we have to try and bring those in. And so we're struggling now. We've managed to come up with some ideas that seem to work to provide these resources, but I would certainly love to provide a plan and not be scrambling and putting fires out all the time. And I think I'll be able to sleep a little bit better after this plan is completed and we have a plan in place to provide these levels of services.
Great, thank you. And certainly then the budgets that are necessary in order to provide these kind of services too, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then that's a component in there. We'll have order of magnitude estimates for what we'll need for the projects that they identify. And in the previous plans that they showed us had that level of detail, and, if it's going to cost on the order of $10,000 to go to the cloud for our email server versus keeping it here and trying to buy and expand the resources so that we're not running out of space and you guys aren't getting that notice from the email saying that you're almost out of space.
Or you're asking for money, right? That was my experience. The day I was voted in as mayor, the next day an email went out to all city employees from me asking people for money or something like that.
Well, you were asking them to call because you wanted to create some awards or something. And that's one of the things that, we've been working on for our cybersecurity. It opened my eyes to the fact I was kind of hoping that we were a small enough entity that nobody was watching us. But that made it very clear that there are some bad actors paying attention to these meetings and they realized that you were selected as a mayor and, okay, here's a quick opportunity for us to try and get a hold of some staff who may not be as ready to and may not recognize, oh, we got a new mayor and not recognize the email address and potentially respond inappropriately.
Well, I think sorry to jump in on your time there, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, but I think the cyber security threat is most onerous for small cities like us, where they think that we don't have the capabilities or the firewalls to fight them off. And we can be easily held ransom. They might not be going off after millions of dollars, but maybe $100,000 here or there could be what they're looking for, and we're an easy target, or could be an easy target. So I'm really happy to see this report and this assessment being done. I'm sorry, do you have anything else, Madam Mayor Pro Tem? Because I just jumped in on yours.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. I just did want to touch on the need for cybersecurity. I'm actually working on a cybersecurity response plan for one of my clients, and it just changes daily. There's just new information, and there's a lot more attacks out there than we realize on small businesses and on small governments and municipalities. So I'm really happy that they'll be looking at that particular aspect and also the business continuity aspect, because we're so dependent on technology. And if we lose this capability, we cannot function. So it's really important that we stay insulated and protected. So thank you very much for your hard work on this, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of the contract and the deliverables that they present to us. I did have a question about the timeline. What is the timeline for completion of the assessment and the master plan?
The initial one, and it was assuming, I believe, a slightly earlier start date, but end of January or beginning of February is where we're looking at the IT master plan being presented to City Council.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have a recommendation to select Third Wave Corporation to prepare an information technology master plan, ITMP, and authorize the city manager to execute a contract subject to review and approval of the city attorney. May I have a motion and a second to approve this action?
So moved.
Thank you. Councilman Burke, a second?
Second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. And Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good job. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
And thank you to the rest of your staff as well. I
I'll
know
pass
they're
it.
usually here with us late nights and I forget to thank them. So in case I forget tonight, I want to thank them in advance. Okay, very good. Let's move on then to the next item, and that's item number 9, City Financial Update, fourth quarter fiscal year 2019-2020. The recommendations to receive and file the city's fiscal year 2019-20 budget report, revenues, expenditures, and the city's treasury report through June 30th, 2020. Do we have a report?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. What we have in front of you is our fourth quarter budget to actual report and the treasurer's report through June 30th. The one thing note I'd like to add to the treasurer's report is the next quarter's treasurer's report will show an investment in the Ventura County investment pool, which we got that completed and all set up. I think it was in August or September. But we ended up ending out the year relatively well and in good position, and no relative surprises. They have a detailed report there for any questions that anybody has on it.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. McDonald? Hearing no questions, no comments. I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve.
If I may, before we approve.
I was waiting for you because I knew you were going to have a question.
Not necessarily a question, it's just a comment.
Go ahead, Councilman Gama.
It's very nice to see a surplus. I think we all agree that that's better than a deficit. But moving forward, you know, there's a lot of things in the city that, like our parks, we haven't taken care of our parks as well as we should. The unfunded liability, pension obligation, you know, I've been almost 2 years on this council and I've been trying to figure out how could we direct money into that trust. And I just feel like we need to get some of these things moving forward, and so that when there is a surplus, it goes into a worthy cause. And you know, the pension liability is a worthy cause. Getting our parks rehabbed so that the youth of our community can benefit from using them, and so that all of us could benefit from using them. So I just wanted to make that comment that yes, it's nice to have a surplus, but we do have things that we need to take care of. And I hope that we could start thinking of a policy for perhaps funding the trust for the pension obligation at some degree. And I just feel like time is slipping away, and the quicker that we start and I know it's coming, and I know it takes time to be a part of a governance body like this, but I just wanted to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that there are things that we need to work on, and hopefully we could to work in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Gama. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you, Mr. McDonald, for this detailed report. In your opening comments, so you did mention that there's going to be an update with regards to, is it the county program that you're referring to in terms of setting aside some money?
Yeah, we had gotten approval, it was at least a year ago, to invest our idle funds, maybe even longer.
It had to be longer than that because Linda Lee was part of our city.
Yeah, there was a lot of obstacles that we had to get the accounts and the transactions going on, but it's another long-term investment like LAIF. We finally got that facilitated and everything in there. So it was just a long, lengthy process to get there, but we finally got it there. So on the next quarterly report ending June 30th of 2020, it'll show an investment in the Ventura County. I think they call it the Ventura County Treasurers Investment Pool.
And that was when we had set aside, I believe it was $2 million.
I don't know if we had a specific amount, and I'm thinking that the amount we moved over there was about 6 or 7 million. We basically kind of spread it out between what we had in LAIF and what we needed accessible and utilized that. We've had a lot of older funds coming available, so we were ending up with too much concentrating in LAIF, which is getting a lower return. So that's, I don't think we had a specific amount, but it was more of an allocation of our amount.
So if I'm not mistaken, we actually even took some of the money that was, because we have staff people and some of our enterprise funds pay for staff, i.e. then pension and everything else, that we actually set aside some of that money from enterprise as well into this. Is that what's going to show up in the next report you're going to generate?
That could be the investment that we had with PARS, P-A-R-S, and that was a Section 115 trust that we have some set aside for pension liabilities like Councilmember Gamo is referring to, and also our OPEB liabilities, which are similar but a little bit different.
That was it. There's actually two. You're absolutely right. Okay.
Yeah, and those, because they're in a trust, they'll probably be disclosed in the notes to our statements, and then they're reported as an account from that other organization. So that they'll be a little trickier to find out because they are going to be blended out between the utilities and the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Rollins.
So I read that we have a $1.6 million surplus this year.
In the general fund.
In the general fund. How much of that 1.6 is based on the fact that we haven't hired all the people that we originally budgeted for? About what percentage or how much of that 1.6 would be staffing that we just haven't filled yet?
You know what? I know there was a percentage of that was in there, but I don't think we looked at it from that individual angle. So I couldn't even venture a guess.
Okay.
But it was a contributor.
Yeah, because on the surface, $1.6 million surplus seems pretty nice, but if we haven't actually funded the positions that we or we funded those positions, but we didn't actually fill the ones that the council approved of, it may be a little bit misleading if it's a great percentage of that $1.6 million surplus.
Yeah, I think if you went through the budget to actual report, if that was the case, you would see actual numbers lower than what the budgeted numbers are.
Okay. The other thing is I see an unassigned fund balance of $19.9 million. I know originally the council approved is the unassigned fund balance the same as the term reserves or not?
It is part of the reserves. It's a method of classifying and describing the different types of reserves that you would have with committed or assigned or unassigned. So like, for instance, an example of this one is we had the spa loan get paid back. That loan that was out there before was not an unassigned fund balance because it was restricted by that loan. When that paid back, it changed from being a restricted balance to being unassigned. It's still in the asset category, but it changed from an accounts receivable or a note receivable to cash. So because of that fluid liquid cash, it increased the unassigned amount because it wasn't assigned or pledged to any one activity.
So I know that a while back, council approved like what the percentage of reserves should be, and they made an adaptation to that so that we were able to operate and have a safe amount of reserves. The current reserves that we have based on all the information that you have, are we higher than that percentage, lower than that percentage, or right on target?
Yeah, it's higher. I think what you were referring to is we used to have a unassigned reserve balance requirement of 50%. We reduced it down to, I believe it was 25%, to allow us to get through the difficult financial times. And now, because of our, what I'd like to say, proper management and control of our expenses, as our revenues are increasing and our expenses haven't, we've been able to increase by having surpluses and increase our fund balance reserve, which should make more money available for strategies of addressing the unfunded liabilities, parks capital improvements, and some of those other items.
So then from that 25%, are we now at, I mean, generally, are we at 35% or are we at 50% again? Or
I think off the top of my head, I think it was close to 55%.
Oh, so that's even higher than before, right? I mean, before so we're doing very well in that respect. Okay, so then the other question I had, and maybe it's just more of an information item. What does it mean, transfer outs?
Well, let's say one fund is contributing towards another fund's activities through the cost allocation or something else. When an item is transferred from one fund to another, it's listed in transfers in and out. Generally, it's an inter-fund transfer.
Okay, and then I guess this may be a question directed to City Manager Connors. If we're doing quite well, and I guess it's alluding also to what Councilman Gama said, if we're one of the things that I've seen is that like we have a very minimal staff maintaining the parks right now. They're doing a yeoman's job, but there's very few people doing that. If the council at a later time was, when would the council be able to say, hey, we have some extra funds here on, be it the short term or long term, let's try to bone up some of the things that we need to get done that obviously we don't have enough staff to do right now?
That's a somewhat of a complex, it's an easy question, but a complex answer.
I always do that.
We have, as Mayor Pro Tem had alluded to, several strategic or master plans. So we are developing roadmaps, economic community development, quality efficiency, information systems and integration, and all those will produce a variety of different outcomes, including efficiencies, including a potential increase or decrease in staffing, and we'll convert certain roles. And so we are going to evolve substantially over the next 3 to 5 years. And so, you know, in the first steps, it's going to be just the basic analysis of what all those master planning documents produce in terms of a roadmap, budget, and funding priorities. In the next council meeting, you'll receive a brief on the development of a policy associated with reserve management, but also executing of surplus in terms of unfunded liabilities. What are the key factors in making those decisions? And then the other things is, what levels do you want to commit to in terms of priorities for budget on all those items that you mentioned, including staffing. So we are, just getting set to rev all this stuff up. And so it'll be a little bit of time, I think, before we can make good, hard decisions on what that final staffing looks like, or at least that initial phase of staffing looks like.
So would the timeline be next budget year, or would there be any possibility within this budget year to make some Band-Aid fixes?
Well, I think we're constantly making adjustments in the current budget year for things that become higher priorities. But a big wave of accommodation will occur in the next budget build as we merge and interleave these master planning and roadmaps into budget activity, capital improvement programs, and staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. McDonald? All righty. Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion in a second?
So move.
Okay.
Second.
All right. And roll call vote?
Councilmember Gama?
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
It passes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, this brings us to council members' reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. Councilman Rollins, would you like to go first?
Yes, all of the boards and meetings that I'm a part of will start after this council meeting over the next few weeks. The REACH meeting, the SCAG environment and energy meeting, the Ventura County Air Pollution Board meeting, they're all in the next month, but none have happened as of yet, so I have no report.
Okay, I'm kind of where you are as well. Councilman Gama.
I have nothing to report on because my meeting with Beacon is coming up on the 20th. I do have a couple items. I know that some of them are coming. I was wondering if we can look at a policy for what I would call our two problematic shopping centers, Tradewinds and the 99-cent area. These areas are just disrespected there's just so much trash and disregard. And I was wondering what kind of tools we have in our city tool chest to try and help or direct the property owners to clean up their environments a bit. So that's something for a possible future agenda item. I just see those areas as constantly in disarray. Also, trees, and I've talked to city manager about trees. I love trees, but I also know that if you love a tree, you have to manage a tree. Otherwise, the tree will get the best of you. And HOAs, the city, the schools, we have these trees that are like 40 plus years old and they're beginning to be problematic. And at some point, I think as a council, we're gonna have to visit that topic. And just real quickly, I've been hearing at night road racing throughout the community here, and I witnessed it yesterday while I was watching the sunset at the beach, and there was some reckless driving. I mean, just reckless 2.0 driving, and I could hear these cars and engines revving late at night, and they do it in the city of Oxnard, but they do come racing down Hueneme Road, and it's just something that I think at some point we're going to have to try and curtail it. Again, possible another agenda item in the future. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Gama. Councilman Berg?
Yes, thank you. Nothing to report this time. Next meeting.
All right, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things. I know you'll probably say something about the Habitat for Humanity event that we attended today. Just wanted to mention a few things here is that our citizens really want to get involved in different areas of the community, and sometimes they have skills and expertise in some areas that we don't know of. So here's a shout out to community member resident Seth Bonilla. He actually created a poster that I believe we are either implementing or have implemented down at the beach. And it really is about taking responsibility to throw away the trash and the receptacles. And I believe his artwork was accepted by the police chief and the city manager. So here's a gentleman who resides in our community and runs his own business, and he wanted to contribute in a certain way. So I just want to acknowledge him. Another thing too that I realized that this city council probably didn't know we ever did, but in 2016, on November the 21st, we acknowledged someone and gave them an honorary citizenship to the city of Port Hueneme. The reason why is her name is Hueneme Jones. And so as I was going through my assortment of, just keeping tabs about what's going on, I just wanted to make sure that you all know that we have a resident who lives in the Midwest of the U.S. who is actually named our beautiful city name. And so hopefully once COVID is over with, she can come out and visit because she's never been out this way. But the story goes is that her father then was part and parcel of the community out here, the naval base, and loved the name so much that he named his daughter Hueneme Jones. With that, I'll end my report. Thank you.
I love that, Hueneme Jones. Okay, I don't have much to report. We did participate this morning in a gathering, a safe gathering, I might add, out at 716 San Pedro. We met with Habitat for Humanity and the 6 cannabis businesses, minus one who could make it, who donated $32,500 in total to go toward the Habitat for Humanity project. So we were there to present them to receive the big checks and to thank them for their contribution. It's they are just doing great in helping our community grow in so many different ways, and all good stuff, all improvements, and this project is one of them. And so we really just wanted to take the time to thank them, and I wanted to acknowledge Chief Salinas for organizing it. I want to thank Kathleen Foster and Michael Ward for being there to cover it for us, and all the cannabis businesses who donated. And I don't have the list in front of me, so I apologize for that. But Councilman Rollins was there, Madam Mayor Pro Tem was there, the city manager and chief of police and our PIO was there to get some drone shots and other media for us. So it was a really nice event, and we were really excited to work with Habitat for Humanity. Darcy Taylor and his staff were looking so much forward to this project breaking ground, which will be breaking ground very, very soon in the next few days. And I think we'll be asked to go out and do the shovel when they get, the shovel photograph when they get ready to do that groundbreaking ceremony. So stand by for that. The other thing I wanted to share with you is, many of you know I lost my cat. I believe he was lost to a coyote, my cat of 17 years. So I've been searching for a new kitten. And I went through Cat's Cradle on one possible kitten that I was looking for, and got to meet the owner of Cat's Cradle and discovered that Cat's Cradle does the rescues of the feral cats along the promenade and on the port. They capture them, they trap them, they fix them, they re-release them. If it's kittens, they'll usually keep them and make sure that they get fixed and then adopted. But what was unusual, and I thought needed council attention, was the fact that they received no donations from either the port or our city for the work that they do. And they provide us a real vital service. So I've put a bug into the city manager's ear to consider funding the organization on an annual basis from the Community Benefit Fund, possibly. So I just wanted to share that with the rest of the council that I made that request. I have meetings lined up. It seems like all the meetings are starting to pick up now, right at the beginning of the holiday season. So I'll have more to report on my meeting commitments at the next council meeting. Other than that, that's all I have. I did want to adjourn this meeting in memory of Joanna Bard, who was 103 years old and who we lost in the last, just recently, in the last couple of weeks. I don't have much information other than that, but I wanted to make sure we extended our hearts and our prayers to the Bard family. And she lived a very, very long life. I hope we can actually do her more justice at one of our future council meetings and share a little bit more about her contribution to the city and her life. And I think that would be very interesting to hear if we could somehow pull that together. I want to thank all the council members for setting an example to our community by wearing your masks out in public. We are and can make a difference in keeping our numbers down and making sure that we get to that red tier. We all have to do our part. So I wanted to thank city council members for that. And just remind you that you can get more information on COVID-19 at the porthuenemeemergency.org website. I want to thank staff for your support tonight during this meeting. Thank you, Christy. I know you were juggling a couple of jobs there, and we were having some technical difficulties all the way around, but hopefully those will get resolved by the next meeting. But thank you, staff, for your report and your good work. And with that, I'll go ahead. If there's no objection, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Good night. Be safe. We'll see you next time.
Right.
Meeting's adjourned.